the video today. So today I'm talking about something that I have been focused on for a while now. I am planning my study abroad trip. So there is a lot that goes into planning a study abroad trip. And it's a lot more than I ever thought was possible. It just seemed really overwhelming at first. So I'm going to give you guys a few tips and just kind of help you out because this has been kind of difficult. Okay, so first what you have to do with study abroad is obviously either you need to decide where you want to go or what you want to do. And so for what you want to do, do you want to volunteer? Do you want to do some sort of like service learning project? Do you want to intern, or do you want to study abroad, which obviously is the most common. And so for study abroad, you're getting like some sort of class credit basically. So after you do that, you need to go ahead and decide how much do you want to spend on this. So usually volunteering projects are going to be a little bit less expensive, whereas study abroad ones are usually going to be about the most expensive. So I'm planning on doing a volunteer abroad, but I'll get maybe 1 or 2 hours of class credit. And so if you are volunteering abroad or interning abroad, I encourage you to go ahead and go ask either your advisor or your department head for your college, just if you can get some sort of credit. So some people will give like a research credit or just like some random interdisciplinary credit for doing some sort of work abroad. So in terms also of deciding where you want to go or what you want to do, this can really affect if you can volunteer or if you can intern, because obviously some areas of the world aren't going to have the internships that you need in your area, and they're not going to need as much help in terms of like volunteering. And you also want to be aware when you're deciding where you want to go as to whether the places are safe, if they're actually providing a program right now. Have they had any natural disasters recently? Are there any major changes? Is their government stable? Stuff like that. And you may not think about that every day, like in your everyday life, but when you're actually looking at going abroad and spending a lot of time there, these are really important things you need to look at. And if you haven't already done this, your advisor or your study abroad officer, whoever's helping you, is probably going to encourage you to do this. So, also for cost, if you have unlimited cost, obviously picking a program probably isn't going to be quite as difficult, because you can spend all the money you want and you don't really need to worry about if there are scholarships available or if you're getting the best deal. But like I said, volunteer programs do tend to be a little bit cheaper. That being said, you may not get any sort of class credit, and it is harder to find scholarships. So it's kind of finding that balance for you. Even though they're cheaper to begin with, you may not be eligible for scholarships. So you really need to weigh the pros and cons. And you also need to think about when you're going. If you're going during the summer, then you might not be able to apply your school scholarships if you're doing study abroad. Whereas if you're going during the spring or fall semester, you can usually apply some of the scholarships you normally get for school. So there are a lot of online sites for finding scholarships. I'll try to put some of those in there that I've looked at. But the first place you need to check is with your school, because a lot of times schools are going to offer a lot of scholarships, and the scholarships at schools, they seem just a little bit less sketchy and a little bit more likely that you would get those, because it's not people from all over the world applying, it's just people from your university or college. And so again, there are a lot of online sites. I would try and check first with your program after you've checked with your school, because some programs offer a lot of scholarships. So there are higher chances of you getting a scholarship if you're from a minority group, if you have financial need, if you're getting something like a Pell Grant already at school, just different things like that. There are some for academic merit, of course, too, but you have to sometimes search just a little bit harder for those, and they're not quite as frequent. Now, after you have started to think about costs and money and made all your spreadsheets, which of course too, with that you need to check into flights. Flights to some countries are going to be extremely expensive. I'm planning on going to Australia, and flights there, they can be $1,000. They can be extremely expensive, so those are costs that you need to go ahead and average in, and you need to average those in sometimes before you apply for scholarships, because some scholarships are going to ask you for a really specific list of every single cost that you have. And so these costs also include food. How much is food going to cost there? Are any meals included in the programs you're looking at? Is a visa included? Housing. Are they providing housing for you? Is this an extra cost to get housing? Is it cheaper to use something like an Airbnb? Is that something you'd want to do? Those are all things you have to look at. You also need to go ahead and look to see if you want to travel different places. So what I mean by that is once you're there, are you going to remain in a single area or are you going to travel? Because extra flights and trains and whatever buses, all of that is going to be an extra cost, and so you want to make sure you've allowed for all of those extra expenses. And you also want to go ahead and add some extra like spending room into your budget, because you don't know what's going to happen over there. You may want to go and do something else that's fun, or you may get into a situation where you need to spend more money. And again, you also need to think about your insurance over there. Does your regular insurance cover your international trip? And you need to look at phone services. So I know for me, Verizon can be really expensive when you're overseas, so I'll probably do something else. You want to check with your phone carrier to see what their international program is like. It might not be feasible or smart to go about it that way, and so I would look into all of your options with all of this. And you want to make sure you get the correct visa, because sometimes for students that going overseas, the visa can be a lot cheaper. And you also need to think about a passport with your visa. Or you can also do this before. You can really do this at any stage, but you do need to do this. You need to talk to an officer or someone at your school who's involved in study abroad. So go to your study abroad office, have a few programs in mind, and then you need to talk to them about everything that they offer in terms of how they can help you and what exactly you need to do. Because sometimes before you even apply for scholarships, they may want you to get the program approved by their office. So that's why I'm saying this really just depends on the program you choose when you need to go and talk to them. So what can these officers do? These officers are workers. I'm calling them officers. They can probably be called whatever. But they can help you. They can help you find money. They can help you get everything set up through the school. They can help you find the best deal in a program. They can help you find programs. They can help you really at just about any stage. And of course, some of this will come down to you. If it's not a program offered through your school, then or supported by your school, then that's going to be a lot more effort on your part. So also take that into account. I'll be honest, my person was not super helpful. She helped me get the correct forms, but I found my program on my own. I've been mainly looking into scholarships on my own, and so that's just how I'm choosing to do it. But use all of your resources that are available to you and do whatever you think makes the most sense for you and your program. So once you have all of that stuff done, you can go ahead and look at signing up for your program, booking your flights. And one thing I will caution on is in some places of the world, weather is very different. So you also want to think about that. If you hate the cold and you're going to Australia in the summer, they have completely different seasons than us, so that is their winter. And so that's just one final thing to kind of keep in mind as you're doing this. But good luck on your study abroad, and hopefully it works out for all of us. I'm sure we'll all have a great summer, and I'll keep you guys up to date with the process and everything that I'm going through with my summer abroad internship.